In a world constantly buzzing with significant global events, it's easy to overlook the simmering pressures within our own societies. Today, let's delve into a crucial aspect of societal stability: identifying the groups most susceptible should the foundations of American society face a severe test. Stay with us, as we'll offer concluding thoughts at the end of this analysis. Before we proceed, if you find value in discussions like these, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Your support is vital for our growth. Also, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from our audience. Imagine waking up tomorrow to find the certainties you rely on, your employment, your residence, your life savings, had vanished. In contemporary America, such a scenario might seem implausible, perhaps even unthinkable. Yet history teaches us that societal collapse, though rare, can occur with astonishing speed, catching populations unprepared. Should such an event transpire in the United States, millions could find themselves displaced and destitute almost overnight. The unsettling truth is that several segments of the population are already living dangerously close to this precipice. In this examination, we will identify the 6 demographics most likely to face homelessness first, if America were to experience a systemic collapse, and explore the reasons why vigilance is necessary, even if you currently feel secure. The reality is, no one is as insulated from potential catastrophe as they might believe. As the United States grapples with escalating living expenses and pervasive economic ambiguity, senior citizens have subtly emerged as one of the most precarious demographics. These are individuals who dedicated decades to their professions, nurtured families, and contributed consistently to systems they trusted would safeguard them in their later years. They built the framework of the society we know, investing their labor and resources with the expectation of security during retirement. However, that implicit promise is increasingly showing signs of strain, leaving many seniors in a vulnerable position. The systems they relied upon, like Social Security and pensions, are facing immense pressure, while the cost of essentials continues its relentless upward climb. Recent statistics reveal a sobering picture. Nearly 40% of seniors depend almost entirely on Social Security benefits. The average monthly payment hovers around $1,800, a figure starkly insufficient when contrasted with average rental costs that have surged beyond $3,000 in many areas. This disparity creates an immediate financial shortfall for basic housing, let alone other necessities. The burden doesn't end there. Mounting medical expenses, the rising price of food and utilities, and transportation costs further constrict their already tight budgets. This financial squeeze leaves virtually no margin for unforeseen emergencies, making them exceptionally susceptible to sudden shocks. For a large number of elderly individuals, a single significant financial setback, an unexpected hospitalization, a sudden rent increase due to market fluctuations, or potential cuts to social programs designed to support them, can represent the critical tipping point, thrusting them into homelessness. Unlike younger generations who might possess the flexibility to take on additional part-time work or relocate to areas with better economic prospects, seniors often lack these options. Health limitations, diminished mobility, and age-related discrimination in the job market severely restrict their ability to supplement their income or adapt to changing economic landscapes. Consequently, recovering from a financial collapse becomes an almost insurmountable challenge for this age group. Across various states, from California with its high cost of living to Arizona facing its own economic pressures, the sight of elderly Americans living out of vehicles, erecting makeshift shelters in parking lots, or queuing for limited spaces in homeless shelters is becoming distressingly more frequent. These are the teachers, factory workers, nurses, and veterans, the very individuals who constructed the nation, now finding themselves forsaken precisely when they require the most assistance. Their plight serves as a poignant reminder of the fragility of security in old age. If the United States were to confront a genuine widespread economic collapse, the elderly population wouldn't merely struggle. Many would irrevocably lose everything they spent a lifetime accumulating. The most heart-wrenching aspect is that once they fall into such dire circumstances, the available safety nets are often inadequate or insufficient to provide a meaningful recovery path. It's a stark illustration that in a faltering economy, the simple act of growing old could transform into the most significant risk of all, challenging our societal commitment to care for those who came before us. We've just examined the first group. Please watch through to the end, as we will be drawing important conclusions based on all the groups discussed. Young adults in America today are navigating one of the most challenging economic environments in the nation's recent history, burdened by a financial weight largely unfamiliar to preceding generations at such a scale: overwhelming student debt. This generation was consistently advised that pursuing higher education was the definitive pathway to success. They were encouraged to work diligently, secure loans, and obtain degrees, with the assurance that these efforts would be rewarded with stable careers and lasting financial security. The narrative presented was one of investment yielding guaranteed returns in the form of a prosperous future. However, the reality they encountered has starkly diverged from these promises. In the year 2024, the total outstanding student loan debt in the U.S. has ballooned past an astonishing $1.77 trillion. The average individual borrower now carries a debt load exceeding $37,000, a figure that represents a significant financial encumbrance before they even fully establish their careers. For a considerable number, this debt is substantially higher, reaching double or even triple that average amount, particularly for those who pursued graduate or professional degrees. Compounding this issue, starting salaries in many fields have failed to keep pace with the escalating cost of living and the substantial debt accrued. Graduates often find themselves entering a job market where entry-level positions barely offer wages above the minimum requirement, especially in fields saturated with qualified candidates. The promise of high-paying jobs immediately after graduation frequently proves elusive, leaving many underemployed or struggling to make ends meet despite their educational qualifications. The contemporary job market presents further challenges. Instead of traditional, stable employment, many young adults find themselves in an economy increasingly characterized by contract-based gigs, freelance projects, and unstable work arrangements. These positions often lack the benefits, job security, and predictable income associated with the careers their parents might have enjoyed. Competition for even these less secure positions can be fierce, adding another layer of stress and uncertainty. Unlike older generations who may have had opportunities to build assets like home equity or savings early in their careers, today's young adults burdened by debt often have no such financial cushion. They lack homes, substantial savings, or investments to fall back on during difficult times. Their financial landscape is dominated by the relentless demand of monthly debt payments that often feel inescapable and continue regardless of employment status. Consequently, when an economic downturn or collapse occurs, this demographic is positioned to be among the first and most severely impacted. Layoffs frequently hit entry-level and less secure positions hardest, precisely the types of jobs many young graduates hold. Simultaneously, essential costs like rent continue to rise, squeezing their budgets further. Opportunities for career advancement or finding alternative employment can evaporate quickly in a contracting economy. For these indebted young adults, missing even a few paychecks can rapidly escalate into a crisis, potentially leading to eviction, homelessness, and the crushing weight of unresolved debt still looming over them. The situation is particularly grim because even declaring bankruptcy typically offers no relief from federal student loan obligations, making this form of debt uniquely persistent. Many are already living precariously, balancing multiple jobs simply to stay financially afloat, often delaying significant life milestones such as purchasing a home, starting families, or even achieving basic independence by moving out of their parental homes. If a comprehensive economic collapse were to materialize, they wouldn't just lose their current financial footing. They would risk losing the fragile beginnings of the adult lives they have been striving so hard, against considerable odds, to construct. In a system that seems predisposed to challenge their financial stability from the outset, they could find themselves abandoned at the very moment they most desperately need support, facing a future vastly different from the one they were promised. The service industry and the burgeoning gig economy form the operational bedrock of daily life in modern America. Yet the individuals powering these sectors face significant inherent vulnerabilities. These workers are ubiquitous, performing essential roles that keep society functioning smoothly. They are the cashiers processing our grocery purchases, the rideshare drivers ensuring we reach our workplaces, the restaurant staff preparing and serving meals, and the delivery personnel bringing goods to our doorsteps. Their labor is indispensable to the country's rhythm. However, concealed beneath the surface of their constant activity lies a stark and often harsh reality. The majority of workers in these sectors are navigating a precarious financial existence, frequently living paycheck to paycheck. Their employment is often characterized by a lack of traditional benefits, such as health insurance, paid sick leave, or retirement plans. Job security is frequently minimal, with fluctuating hours and unstable income streams being the norm rather than the exception. Consequently, they operate without a substantial safety net to cushion them against financial shocks. Statistics underscore this precariousness. Nearly 60 million Americans are employed in the service sector today. A large proportion of these individuals earn less than $15 per hour, a wage that makes saving or building long-term financial security incredibly difficult, especially in areas with a high cost of living. They often lack access to employer-sponsored health insurance, leaving them vulnerable to crippling medical debt if illness or injury strikes. Furthermore, retirement planning is frequently an unaffordable luxury, meaning they have little to fall back on in their later years. During periods of relative economic stability, this inherent instability might be manageable, albeit stressful. Workers adapt, often juggling multiple jobs or relying on inconsistent gig assignments to make ends meet. However, should the American economy plunge into a severe recession or face a more catastrophic collapse, service and gig workers are positioned to be among the very first casualties. Their livelihoods are directly tied to consumer spending and discretionary income. As households tighten their belts during economic downturns, spending on dining out, travel, retail purchases, and ride-sharing services typically plummets. This decline in demand translates almost immediately into reduced hours, lost contracts, and widespread layoffs within the service and gig sectors. Restaurants shutter, retail stores reduce staff, and the demand for gig-based services like transportation and delivery diminishes rapidly. Unlike full-time employees in more traditional sectors who might receive severance packages or qualify for unemployment benefits to bridge income gaps, most service and gig workers lack these protections. When their income streams dry up, they are often left with nothing. Many service workers already operate with razor-thin budgets, stretching their income to its absolute limit. It's common for them to share housing with multiple roommates or rely on several part-time jobs simultaneously just to cover basic expenses like rent and food. With negligible savings and no financial cushion to absorb income loss, even a minor disruption, a temporary illness, a car breakdown, or a reduction in work hours, can rapidly push them towards financial ruin and potentially onto the streets. In the context of a major economic collapse, the scale of homelessness among this demographic could be truly staggering. They represent some of the most industrious individuals in the nation, often maintaining positive attitudes while performing demanding, customer-facing roles. Yet, the economic structure frequently treats their labor as disposable. When the broader economy falters, they are disproportionately affected. Hit first, hit hardest, and often left invisible in the ensuing wreckage, struggling to survive without the basic securities many others take for granted. Single parents perpetually navigate a high-wire act, meticulously balancing the immense responsibilities of work, childcare, household management, and financial obligations, often with limited external support. Their daily lives are a constant exercise in resourcefulness and resilience, managing complex schedules and stretching limited resources to provide for their children. This inherent pressure makes them particularly susceptible to economic instability. For the over 11 million single parents residing in the United States, the vast majority of whom are women, life is an unceasing juggling act performed without a safety net. They simultaneously function as the primary breadwinners and the principal caregivers, a dual role that leaves little room for error or unexpected setbacks. Consistent support from family, a co-parent, or robust government assistance programs is often lacking, placing the full weight of responsibility squarely on their shoulders. Every dollar earned must be carefully allocated, often stretching incredibly thin to cover housing, food, clothing, healthcare, and childcare costs. Every hour of the day is meticulously accounted for, divided between employment, parenting duties, and household chores. In this tightly managed existence, any unforeseen expense or disruption can trigger a cascade of negative consequences, potentially leading to financial catastrophe. Whether it's a sudden medical emergency requiring costly treatment, an unexpected rent hike driven by market forces, a necessary car repair disrupting transportation to work, or a reduction in work hours, such events can be devastating for a single-parent household operating on the financial edge. When America confronts a significant economic collapse, single parents stand among the most acutely vulnerable populations. They typically lack the financial reserves or secondary household income that might buffer dual-parent families against job loss or economic hardship. Losing employment, even temporarily, can mean an immediate inability to pay for basic necessities, including housing. The challenge is compounded by the often prohibitive cost and limited availability of affordable childcare. Without reliable and affordable care, seeking new employment, pursuing retraining opportunities, or even working consistent hours becomes incredibly difficult, trapping them in a cycle of financial instability. Furthermore, many assistance programs designed to help low-income families have stringent income eligibility limits. Paradoxically, these limits can penalize single parents who manage to earn slightly above the threshold, cutting off crucial support, even if their income remains insufficient to truly make ends meet. This creates an impossible bind, deemed too rich for aid, yet too poor to survive independently without it. The lack of affordable housing options further exacerbates their plight. Even those working full-time often struggle to find safe and adequate housing within their budget, forcing them into substandard living conditions, or requiring long commutes that add transportation costs and reduce time available for childcare. In an economic collapse scenario, shelters and emergency housing resources would likely be overwhelmed quickly, leaving single-parent families with few viable options. They could find themselves resorting to living in vehicles, couch surfing with friends or relatives, an often unsustainable arrangement, or being forced into dangerous or unstable living situations simply to avoid literal homelessness on the streets. Single parents represent some of the most determined and strongest individuals in society, fighting tirelessly every day to secure a better future for their children against considerable systemic obstacles. However, even immense personal strength cannot fully compensate for a lack of adequate support systems when the broader economic structure fails. If America were to fall into a deep crisis, without sufficient safety nets specifically addressing their unique challenges, many single parents and their children would be among the first to bear the heaviest and most heartbreaking consequences of the collapse. Former industrial workers embody a significant and proud era of American economic history. Yet today, their circumstances often highlight one of the nation's most profound vulnerabilities. These are the men and women who were once the driving force behind the country's manufacturing might, laboring in steel mills, auto plants, and factories that were central to America's global economic strength. Entire towns and communities flourished around these industries, which provided not just jobs, but stable wages, reliable benefits, and a strong sense of purpose and identity for millions of working-class families. These jobs were often seen as pathways to middle-class security, enabling generations to build stable lives. However, the landscape drastically shifted with the rise of globalization, automation, and the widespread practice of outsourcing manufacturing jobs to countries with lower labor costs. These forces combined to hollow out American manufacturing, leading to the closure of countless factories and the decimation of the industrial job base. The workers who had dedicated their lives to these industries were often left stranded, their skills suddenly obsolete or devalued in the changing economy. Since the year 2000, the United States has witnessed the disappearance of over 5 million manufacturing jobs. This staggering loss represented more than just vanished paychecks. It signified the erosion of stability, community pride, and financial security for vast numbers of people. Former industrial powerhouses like Detroit, Buffalo, and Gary, Indiana, saw their economic foundations crumble, transforming vibrant communities into struggling areas often referred to as ghost towns or parts of the Rust Belt, grappling with population decline, decaying infrastructure, and limited opportunities. For many of the workers left behind in these communities, viable alternative employment options were scarce. The skills honed over years on assembly lines or in specialized industrial roles did not easily translate to the burgeoning service or technology sectors. Often the only available jobs were low-wage service positions, lacking the benefits, union protections, or potential for advancement that their previous industrial jobs had offered. This transition frequently meant a significant decline in living standards and long-term prospects. Today, a large number of these former industrial workers are middle-aged or older. They find themselves in a difficult position, often too young to qualify for full retirement benefits, yet facing significant hurdles in competing for new jobs against younger workers or those with different skill sets. Age discrimination, though illegal, can be a subtle barrier, and the physical toll of years spent in demanding labor can make adapting to new types of work challenging. Many face chronic unemployment or underemployment, struggling to make ends meet. They may be trying to pay mortgages on homes that have significantly depreciated in value due to the local economic decline, trapping them financially. They live in towns where economic opportunity dried up long ago, with limited prospects for revitalization. Any savings accumulated during their working years, if they existed at all, have likely been depleted over time. Furthermore, health issues stemming from years of physically demanding work are common among this demographic, adding another layer of difficulty and expense, while simultaneously making it harder to remain competitive in the workforce. In the event of another major economic collapse, these former industrial workers are exceptionally vulnerable. They have already endured one profound economic disaster, the decline of American manufacturing, and often lack the resources or flexibility to weather another. Without substantial policy interventions aimed at retraining, community reinvestment, or strengthened social safety nets, a second economic shock could be utterly devastating. It could push those who are barely managing to hold on into a free fall from which recovery seems nearly impossible. They represent a generation that adhered to the social contract of their time, contributing significantly to the nation's infrastructure and economy, only to be largely abandoned when global economic winds shifted. Their story serves as a critical warning about the consequences of economic transitions that fail to adequately support the displaced workforce, leaving entire communities and demographics at risk when the next crisis hits. Veterans are rightfully honored as heroes for their service and sacrifice, yet upon returning to civilian life, many encounter a reality fraught with difficulties and uncertainties that place them among the nation's most vulnerable groups. The transition from the structured, demanding environment of military service to the complexities of civilian society can be incredibly challenging, and the support systems in place are often insufficient to meet their diverse needs. After dedicating years of their lives, often during formative young adult periods, to serving their country, many veterans struggle to adapt. Finding stable, meaningful employment can be a significant hurdle. Skills acquired and honed in military occupations do not always translate directly or obviously to civilian job requirements. Furthermore, some employers may overlook veteran applicants or misunderstand the value of their military experience, creating barriers to entry in the competitive job market. This is particularly true for those who enlisted directly out of high school and therefore lack civilian work history or formal post-secondary education credentials. The psychological toll of military service, especially for those who experienced combat or traumatic events, adds another layer of complexity. Mental health issues such as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, depression, and anxiety are prevalent among the veteran population. These conditions, often stemming directly from their service experiences, can significantly impede their ability to maintain stable employment, form healthy relationships, and navigate daily life. Compounding this, accessing consistent and appropriate mental health care can be difficult. While the Department of Veterans Affairs, VA, provides services, the system is often overburdened, leading to long wait times and inconsistencies in care quality. Many veterans fall through the cracks, unable to get the timely and effective treatment they need to manage their conditions. This lack of adequate mental health support can contribute to a downward spiral, increasing the risk of substance abuse, social isolation, and ultimately, homelessness. Financial instability is another major threat facing many veterans. Those unable to secure steady employment may rely on disability payments or small pensions. However, these fixed incomes are often insufficient to cover the escalating costs of housing, health care, especially for non-service connected issues, and basic living expenses in many parts of the country. Even in a relatively stable economy, some veterans find themselves living paycheck to paycheck, perpetually teetering on the edge of homelessness. The issue of veteran homelessness is already a serious national problem, with tens of thousands of former service members sleeping on the streets or in shelters on any given night. This existing crisis underscores their heightened vulnerability. Many veterans also lack robust social support networks. Frequent relocations during their military careers can weaken ties to family and home communities. Moreover, the unique nature of military experiences can sometimes lead to feelings of disconnection from civilian society, making it difficult to build new support systems after leaving the service. This isolation can exacerbate mental health struggles and make it harder to cope with financial or employment setbacks. In the event of a major economic collapse, the fragile balance many veterans maintain would likely be shattered completely. Job losses would disproportionately affect those in already precarious employment situations. Support systems, both governmental and non-governmental, would likely become strained and unable to meet the increased demand. Veterans, particularly those dealing with service-related disabilities, mental health challenges, or lacking strong social ties, would be at an extremely high risk of losing their homes and falling into destitution. It represents a profound societal irony that the very individuals who risked everything to defend the country could be among the most abandoned when they need support the most. Veterans have repeatedly demonstrated extraordinary resilience, but resilience alone cannot overcome systemic failures or inadequate resources. If America were to collapse without deliberate, targeted, and substantially improved support structures for its veterans, many would find themselves fighting yet another desperate battle, this time simply for survival on the streets of the nation they served. America's most vulnerable populations, the elderly, young adults burdened by debt, service and gig workers, single parents, former industrial workers, and veterans, are currently facing heightened risks unlike ever before. Should the nation experience a significant economic collapse, many within these groups could tragically find themselves without shelter or resources. From our senior citizens to our veterans, from the struggling middle class to those piecing together a living in the gig economy, the precariousness of their situations cannot be overstated. This is a harsh reality that demands our attention. However, the possibility for positive change exists. It commences with a clear understanding of these complex issues, extends to providing tangible support to those most in need, and necessitates advocating for policies designed to protect all members of society, irrespective of their background or circumstances. Creating stronger, more resilient safety nets and fostering an economy that offers genuine opportunity and security for everyone is not just a matter of compassion. It is essential for the stability and well-being of the entire nation. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to contribute to this important conversation. Stay safe, and look out for one another.